It's the 4th of July and we're celebrating our independence with 24 new comic books from all the major publishers. What's up everybody, I'm Stan and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Preview Picks, where I'm going to go over a bunch of the brand new books that are going to be dropping this week and give you a little bit of insight as to what they're going to be about. Let's start off with the new #1 titles. One of the first new #1s is from Dark Horse Comics, and that's Bounty #1, where the Gadflies are taking on their own kind of space international bounty hunting business. So that looks to be like a very interesting kind of pickup. Then we go to Throwaways #1, which looks like it's going to be some sort of CIA super spy kind of situation, and ultimately it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting tale, but I don't necessarily know how big I'm going to be into that whole spy, disavowed, Mission Impossible kind of scenario. Then we go to Kim and Kim #1, which is from Black Mask Studios, and this is a book where essentially Kim and Kim are international cowboy law enforcement kind of bounty hunters, I guess. It looks like it's got a pretty interesting premise, so I'm going to take a look at it, see what I can grab off the shelf, and whether it's something that I might, actually pay for, or just, whether it's worth a quick glance. Then we head over to DC, where we have Batman versus the Avengers. Well, no, it's more like Batman with the Avengers, but it's not the Avengers that you think it is. It's actually Batman 66 and Mrs. Peel and Mr. Steed, which are the original Avengers from the TV show, not necessarily the Marvel Avengers. So, sorry to break that to you. But overall, it looks like it's a pretty campy, kind of classic comic book that falls in line with the Batman 66 universe. So, it's something that I want to make you aware of. Then we get into our first Rebirth title of the month, and that is Justice League Rebirth. So Justice League Rebirth is going to be the one-shot that leads into the new Justice League #1, which is going to be dropping 2 weeks from now. And this is going to be our first kind of grouping of all these new characters. So we have our new Superman, we've got Wonder Woman, who's kind of in her possible state, we've got 2 new Green Lanterns, and it's going to be an introduction into what this series is going to be going forward. At least that's my hope. However, my hopes haven't always been fulfilled on these new Rebirth titles. Then in new #1s from Marvel, we've got Civil War Kingpin #1. So this is a tie-in book, and the only thing that's really interesting to me about this is that it's being written by Matthew Rosenberg, who's doing 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. And with how much I really enjoy 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank, this is a book that I've decided to pick up. I'm usually avoiding tie-ins like The Plague, but since he's writing it, I'm really interested to see how he can kind of take on this characterization of all these criminals while all these heroes are fighting. I think that it should be pretty interesting. Then, because we have Marvel movie season coming up, we have the Doctor Strange Prelude comic book, and that's the first issue. It looks like it's going to be a 2-part series that's going to come out prior to the movie, and this is a great way for people to kind of get caught up as to what's going to be happening in this Doctor Strange universe and how it impacts the movie going forward. Or at least that's what the comic books previously doing this have done for other movies. Now that we've made it through the new #1 titles, we're going to go back to books that I've already been picking up and have a little bit better idea of where those things are going. Right now we're talking about Brutal Nature #3, which is an absolutely beautiful book. The story's really interesting, and what we see is the church, kind of cleric person is in a very cleansing kind of mood, and he's sending out his best possible confrontational individuals to take on this young boy who's got the power to transform by just simply placing a mask on himself. Overall, it's definitely something that's very visually striking, which is the main reason I'm picking up the book. Then we get into The Fix #4, written by Nick Spencer. And if you're a fan of what Nick Spencer's doing with Captain America, you obviously are already going to enjoy this book. If you're not a fan of what Nick Spencer's doing with Captain America, I don't really care. But if you want to have a really gonzo kind of story that's based around a corrupt cop who's trying to get his, his screenwriting credit, he's trying to get published, trying to get a movie made, his buddy that decides to shoot himself in the hand so he can have a dog as a partner, it's really an outlandish tale, and I'm having fun following along. And now that The Fix is in, oh, this is the good one. So Renato Jones #3. Renato Jones has easily become one of my most favorite books that's coming out. And last time we saw him take on this debaucherous orgy of individuals that had a penchant or a persuasion for pedophilia. That's a lot of alliteration there, but ultimately it was a very trying kind of book. But I'm really interested to see where it goes now, because hopefully we're going to get some more characterization of Bliss. So Bliss was the female character that was playing counterpart to Renato Jones as he was a child, and she feels like she's got a very interesting backstory that hopefully Cara Andrews is going to be exploring. So that's one of the reasons I'm really excited for this book. This book's awesome. Yeah, pick this book up if you haven't already. Next, we dive into DC's lineup, and we have Aquaman #2, so we get to see the overall conclusion of Black Manta's attack on the Spindrift Atlantean embassy, and what kind of resolution there is to this part of the conflict. Maybe it's going to be a slightly longer story arc, so we're going to see where that kind of goes, but as of right now, unfortunately, Aquaman is kind of leaning towards the back of the pack for me. Then we get into Batman #2, so Batman sees the real as we concluded Batman #1, we met Gotham and Gotham Girl, so now we get to see the interactions between Batman and Gotham Girl, and how they're changing the way that Batman perceives the protection of Gotham. So I'm really interested, based on how Tom King writes other books, to see where this goes. And speaking of Tom King, he's also releasing Sheriff of Babylon issue 8, which is another phenomenal story. Between Sheriff of Babylon, Batman, and the Vision, he's got 3 great books going on right now. So I'd recommend picking up both if you're a fan of his writing style. After that, we get a continuation of the Hanna-Barbera classics in Future Quest #2. And, I kind of forgot one, didn't I? Flintstones. Flintstones are coming out. And that's kind of a summary of where things are at, because that's just how kind of unfortunately forgettable these Hanna-Barbera titles are for me. As a kid, I was growing up and I watched a lot of these cartoons and things like that, but they just don't have that same kind of appeal for nostalgic purposes. So the Flintstones #1's coming out. I'm probably not going to pick it up. I just want to let people know that it's there if they do kind of have some fond memory ties back to that point in their childhood. Then we get into Green Lanterns #2, which is the ongoing tale of Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. And while it's not quite as far back of the pack as Aquaman is for me, I still need some time to connect with these new Green Lanterns and see really what's going on. The nice thing is that I don't have to do the same thing with Green Arrow, because Green Arrow #2 is coming out, and I am super excited for that, especially after the little twist at the end of the last issue, and the development that's been going on with Oliver Queen and Dinah Lance, the Black Canary, and Emmy, and oh man, I'm just really into this story. Ben Percy and Otto Schmidt are just doing a great job on that, and the cover that they're putting out this week just looks super cool. I'm really enthralled by this art. It's awesome. And to round out DC's offerings this week, we have Superman #2. So in Superman #1, we saw basically some very graphic kind of violence against a pet, it was kind of unfortunate, but overall it really carried a pretty serious point. And then we see Superdad, standing in the doorway as the conclusion of the first page of this arc, after having a conversation with Batman and Wonder Woman. So now we get to see the aftermath. Is this going to be something punishing? Is this going to be something rewarding? Is it going to be a lesson in responsibility? How is Superdad going to discipline his super son? Or possibly, will he need his aid? I really like Peter J. Tomasi and how he's writing this more responsible, isolated, individualized kind of Superman, which is really getting me into the character. I really enjoy the way that this one's going, and I'm really excited about this issue. Then we jump into Marvel books, and one of the first books that I want to talk about is Amazing Spider-Man issue 15. I really like the way that Power Play is playing out, and the Regent character as a villain is very... I really like the way that he's set up, the fact that he's stealing all these people's powers, and the way that we finished out the story is who is going to help Iron Man and Spider-Man. There's really nobody left based on how Regent has been acting. But based on this cover, you've got a kind of an idea of who might be jumping into the fray, and since she hasn't really had so many aggressive roles in the Spider-Man comic books, I'm really interested to see how this plays out and how she adapts to this kind of situation. I'm really excited to see where this goes before we get into the Clone Conspiracy, Dead No More saga that Dan Slott is promising for later this fall. Next, I was going to talk about Deadpool Gambit #2, but that book didn't really speak to me much at all, so I'm going to be avoiding that one altogether. And then I'm going to go to Moon Knight #4. So in Moon Knight, we're seeing Mark Spector escaping this asylum kind of situation, and he finds that New York City is now something essentially like New Egypt. So having not been really familiar with the Mark Spector Moon Knight character, I find that this is a very amazing entrance into this world. I've got a lot of catching up to do, but the way that Smallwood is really illustrating this gives me this very surreal sensation, and that's one of the things that I'm latching on to the most. Both Mark Spector as a character is very interesting, but also the way that the art kind of complements the whole characterization is something I'm a really big fan of. So, if, really you got to start reading Moon Knight. Jeff Lemire is doing a great job on that book. Yes, I'm a big fan of Jeff Lemire's writing. Everybody knows that by now, or at least they should. Then we go to Invincible Iron Man #11, and Invincible Iron Man's very interesting because Brian Michael Bendis is writing both Civil War II and Invincible Iron Man, and the last issue we saw James Rhodes alive, but a lot's happened since then, so I don't know what's going on. Mike Deodato is on the art for this one, and yeah, I'm not sure how conky the continuity is going to get with these books, because overall if Iron Man is in Japan and James Rhodes is alive and Civil War II is going on, what the hell's going on with the timeline? I just got to do a little suspension of disbelief, and hopefully the story makes up for it. Then we go to Empress #4 on the Icon imprint, and this is written by Mark Millar, and it's still in a situation where I don't feel like there's nearly enough that's going to be wrapped up in the story before we get to issue 7. I'm kind of approaching it in the same way that I approached The Matrix 2. When The Matrix 2 ended, I felt like I was a bit shortchanged simply because there was no ending. It was just like, get you next time. And I'm like, dude, man, if you're going to make me invest in this kind of story, I need to have a sensation that there's going to be some kind of payoff. And unless there's some pretty big turns over the next 3 issues, I don't know what kind of payoff I'm going to get. Overall, Empress is very good. Mark Millar, I seem to enjoy his writing. You know, some people don't, but I'm in it for now, and I'm really hoping he comes up with something that keeps my interest. Then last but certainly not least, we have Totally Awesome Hulk issue 8. So at the end of issue 7, we see Bruce Banner hugging Tony Stark in a casino in Las Vegas, not being the Hulk. What's going to happen? I feel like this is where we're going to find those things out. Plus, where there's a bunch of Marvel Now kind of constructs going on. There's photos and pictures and things like that. And, you know, there's this giant I Quit thing with Amadeus Cho. I'm just not really sure where this story is going to go. It's kind of up in the air for me. I like the way that Greg Pak writes it. Alan Davis does a great job illustrating it. And overall, it's a book that I'm going to continue to read because it's a lot of fun. But I have no idea where they're going. There's so many moving parts that I can't even begin to anticipate. And sometimes that's very fun, but sometimes it's not. So I'm not really sure how I feel about this. But overall, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to read it anyway. So that's my quick preview of all the books that are coming out this week, but I want to know what you're picking up if you're going to be picking up anything different. So hit me up in the comments. As always, if you like what you see, hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.